middle.
All right. Good morning, everyone. We are so thrilled. Oh, I love that. Teachers always respond. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are so thrilled to be here. I just can't tell you how honored I am to be here with these two incredible leaders. When you talk about people who are fighting for the working class, fighting for public education, fighting for higher ed, for equity for all, I can't think of two more courageous, inspiring leaders than the two women who are sitting next to me. And so it is a true honor to have both of them here today in Fall River. And wanted to also give a special thank you to Jessica Alves, who's the president of our paraprofessional unit here in Fall River as well. And all of our members and locals here from the South Coast. We are just thrilled that you all are here, and I'm going to turn it over to our incredible national leader. Seriously, someone who is a steady, strong leader, someone I count on every day and just really look to for inspiration and guidance through these really tumultuous times that we're living through. And so we are so blessed at the American Federation of Teachers to have an incredible, iconic leader, I'm going to say, actually, Randi Weingarten.
Yes. So I saw Jessica on a Zoom last night. She was still speaking at around 10 o'clock. I was able to get off, I think, at 9:47 or 9:48, and she was still speaking at 10 o'clock. And I feel like, oh my God, I can't believe that I had to wake up this early this morning and in the rain and all this other stuff. And look at her, and look at me. But I mean, I'm seriously, one of the reasons we wanted to do a student debt clinic here in Fall River, where we represent the school aides, the paraprofessionals, the support staff, is that the issues of student debt are not only issues for K-12 teachers. The issues of student debt really transcend everyone. And the person I'm going to introduce after I speak, talks about this all the time. If you think about the ecosystem of schools and the ecosystem of communities, we have said for years to everybody, go to college, go to college. College is your ticket to success. College is the way that we can make sure that the next generation does better than our generations. This is the way out. Frankly, we probably overplayed the college and didn't do enough about rethinking schooling and high school, of how you create other kinds of pathways to good middle-class jobs, which I credit Joe Biden for thinking about all the time, and for reshaping industrial policy and labor policy to try to do this. Frankly, someone else on this panel did this even before Joe Biden, and that's Senator Elizabeth Warren. But the point I'm trying to make is, what we learned, I guess about 10, 15 years ago, is that for some of us, going to college, I'm in my 60s. I remember the last student debt coupon I had. I remember having a celebration when I sent it in, and I remember being completely relieved of my student debt, which I had a boatload of because of law school. But even going to the land grant institution in New York State, Cornell, the ILR school, I still could afford it. It's really different now. And the barriers are huge. And you can see this when I say 10 to 15 years ago, I see people shaking their heads. You can see this from the polling we did from our members about the grief, the agita, the worry that people had about, how do you say, I want to go to college, I want to have an opportunity, but then be so burdened with basically $100, $200, $500, $1,000 a month, then how do you do everything else? And what's worse is that people felt a lot of shame about it. So they didn't talk about it. And it felt like, oh, I can't figure this out. That means I'm a bad person. So we saw that shame and that fear and that agita, and then we said, we got to do something about it. And so that's when, about 10 or 12 years ago, the AFT said, we're going to start working on this issue of student debt. Not simply to advocate that college should be more affordable, but what about for everybody else who's gone through college? How are we going to alleviate the student debt and show people of my generation that it's different right now than it was for us? It's different when you're paying $50 a course or when you're paying $50,000 for a semester. Those are different numbers, even to this social studies teacher. They are really different numbers. So that's why what we've tried to do is we've tried to do a whole bunch of things, including what we're going to do right after lunch, a student debt clinic. We've had thousands of them. We've tried to do three things. We've tried to actually, and this is where the senator comes in, and she's much better at this than I am. We have to change policy. You got to make sure that policy is such that we know how to relieve student debt, or we know how to actually have affordable college or free college, and we have policy on the federal level and the state level to make that happen. But as we're doing that, we have to, the second thing is, navigate what's there. So that's why we have the student debt clinics. Because, you know, just like you go to an accountant to do taxes, these things are not easily navigatable unless you have entities that can navigate it. So that's why we have programs like summer and the student debt clinics. But the third thing is, we got to take on the bad guys, like the Navians of the world, like the Betsy DeVosses of the world, like the Mohilas of the world. And so what we did was we saw initially that Navian, you know, made a lot of money being the servicer of student debt, but they didn't service it very well. They didn't take borrowers and make the borrowers their clients. God only knows who their clients were. Maybe it was profit, but it wasn't the borrowers. And so we sued Navian, and we got a process with them to make things better. Then they went out of business. We sued Betsy DeVos. Why did we sue Betsy DeVos? Because in 2017, she was supposed to start the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, where if you had 10 years of service as a teacher in the Army, the rest of your loans would be forgiven. How many people do you think had their loans forgiven? Almost 1%. So 99% no, 1% yes. It should have been the opposite way around. Excuse me. So we sued her, and we won. And the Biden administration changed it. And now, because of that, the Biden administration has created almost, I don't know, 5 million people. 5 million people. Mm-hmm. And how many? I'm going to let your senator tell you these words.
Oh, give it to the nerd.
I'm going to let your senator tell you how many people. I think it's 5 million borrowers, 170 billion. 5 million borrowers, 170 billion forgiven because of what your senator has done, what the Biden administration has done, what the Harris administration has done, and what we have done as part of it. And now, before I introduce your senator, and now we are going after Mohila. Because you gotta make sure the federal government does its job, yep. But the federal government uses these loan servicers to actually service the debt. And Mohila is as bad as Navian. So this month, a couple of weeks ago, we said, it can't just be rich people who can sue. We said on behalf of all of our members, on behalf of everybody who's gotten hurt by Mohila, we are now suing Mohila. And our goal is this. I'm going to end where I started. People want opportunity. Opportunity of a career. Opportunity of a good union job. Opportunity of a living wage. Opportunity of college. Our job as a union is to help facilitate that, to help create voice and facilitate that. And when student loans are an obstacle, we are going to do everything in our power to break that obstacle and to create the paths so that people can soar. And the person I learned most of this from, no kidding, the person I've learned most of this from, the person who I have sat as student to her mentoring on all of these economic issues, particularly on student loan issues, on consumer issues, is your senior senator, Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you. You know, that's much too generous, Randy, but it really is about partnership that gets anything done. And I am so grateful for your leadership of the AFT, but also for your leadership nationally, because you have helped put this issue on the national radar, and this is how we have made change. Not a little nibble of change, but have made big change in this country. So thank you, Randy, for all of you. Thank you. And I just want to say I am happy to be here on a day when Vice President Harris picks as her running mate a former public school teacher. Woo! Woo! You know, if you want something done, get an educator to do it. That's my theory. I do want to say here, because Randy is so right about how things have changed. I grew up in a family I've always described as hanging on to their place in the middle class by their fingernails. My mother ended up working the phones at Sears. My daddy ended up as a janitor. I had one dream from the time I was in second grade, and it was to be a public school teacher. My family didn't have the money to send me to school, but back then you could go to a state school, which I did, a commuter college, for $50 a semester. And what that meant is that you could pay for college on a part-time job and not have to take on debt. And the shift over just from my life to yours has been that to get the education that you need, to do the work that needs to be done, people are taking on mountains of debt, and ultimately those mountains fall over on them and they're getting crushed by this debt. So we are here today because we don't have to just stand by. We can actually make changes around this. I want to start by saying we are now in a student debt crisis, and it's the 1-2 punch. Between 1980 and 2020, we've got a 40-year period there, the cost of college increased by 180%. Wages did not. And the consequence is today we have 43 million Americans trying to shoulder student loan debt. The Biden-Harris administration, as Randy rightly pointed out, has now canceled debt for 5 million people across this country. Think about that. In the entire history of the world, no one has canceled debt for even 1 million people, much less for 5 million people, and they're not through. What they're trying to do now is to use both all of the existing programs possible, and we'll see soon they're coming up with even more regulations through the regulatory process to try to open the lens of how many people can get student loan debt cancellation. The particular program we're here today for is one that was written 20 years ago. Congress passed into law bipartisan public service loan forgiveness. Such a great basic deal. It said if you were born into a family that can just afford to write a check to send you to school, federal government will lend you money. And then if instead of taking that diploma, that education, out and just maximizing how much money you can earn, if instead you go into public service, we're going to make a deal with you. 10 years of making your payments, and at the end of 10, you're done. You're done. America says we are grateful to you. We appreciate your using this education in public schools, in nursing facilities, firefighters, police officers. We are grateful to all of you. 10 years is enough. Now, this program should have been up and operational actually late in the Obama administration. We should have had a lot of people eligible for this by that point, but certainly as we moved into the Trump years. So this program nationwide, by the end of the Trump administration, all the time before then, how many people had gotten public service loan forgiveness relief? Answer, 7,000 across the whole country. Now, under Biden and Harris, reworking just the same legal program, but actually making it work the way it was designed to work, more than 1 million people have received relief under the public service loan forgiveness program. So I think of this as this is a moment when we fought hard, and the partnership between AFT and folks in Congress who were pushing for this and the White House to say, let's use the programs we've got and let's build additional programs. Let's fight, fight, fight for this. We've got good policies now underway, but part 2 is people got to sign up for them. You got to buy your lottery ticket here. Don't buy lottery tickets, really. That's a bad math game. But you got to go and apply. You got to get in there so you can get your public service loan forgiveness program. And so that's what today is about. Understand this. I'm just going to be blunt about this. It's not political. It's just fact. The Republicans do not want you to have the program that you are already legally entitled to. They have gone to court to try to fight every inch of student loan debt forgiveness. They've done it every time the Biden-Harris administration has tried to expand or just try to make the program work the way the law says it is supposed to work, because they don't want you to be able to cancel your debts. They think that the job of government is to work for the billionaires, to work for people who can afford to write a massive check to send their kids to school, and for everyone else to pay for it. And that's just not the way we build a strong future for anyone. So for me, what this is about, what we are doing here, is the right thing for you. It is the right thing for your family to get the student loan debt relief that you are entitled to, but it is also the right thing for our country. It is the right thing to say we are a democracy that works not just for a handful at the top, but a democracy that works for everyone, and that's why we're here. But I got to make one last pitch about this. How does it happen that we come together? This is what unions are about. You know, there are a lot of people out there who are entitled to student loan debt forgiveness, but if they don't know about it, if they don't work their way through the paperwork, they're not going to get it. We need someone to be with us on the front end on policy, and that's certainly been the AFT. It's been Randi, it's been Jessica, but we also need somebody to be there with us on the delivery end of this, when you actually get the policies to the right place, but you really need to deliver the services, you need to deliver the relief. Partners are what make us strong. And our union partner on student loan debt relief was absolutely crucial. Without the AFT, you never want to have to say the alternative path, but we wouldn't be where we are, where more than 5 million people have already received relief and more to come. We'd be in a very different place, where there would be literally millions of more people across this country struggling with student loan debt. So I'm here today partly to say, great, take advantage of this, but partly to say a huge thank you to what it means that union members pitch in your dues, you pitch in your time, so that together we can build an America that works for everyone. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you. And I think right now, you're going to announce what we do next?
Yes.
Good.
So, we are so grateful for the work that the two of you have done. When we talk about fighting for working people, for educators, for public education, and all the things that we need for thriving communities, these two women have a plan and then put it into action.
Yeah.
And we've seen that with what's happened with student debt forgiveness. And I remember just a few months ago, we did a panel. We heard from some folks who were actually trying to take advantage of the debt clinics and then actually the process. And at that point, they shared kind of some of the troubles with MOHELA. And look where we are now a few months later.
Yep.
Again, taking what they hear and turning it into action to solve the problems.
Remember at that clinic or at that workshop that we had, so we heard a bunch of problems with MOHELA that actually led us to doing this lawsuit. But remember that day, Sheila came in, she had just
That's
gotten,
right, yeah.
So we had several members, like here, and one of them was going to talk about her loan, and she said that morning she had gotten the email saying her loan had been forgiven.
Yep.
So you just this burst of energy that came from somebody that we all know, and just it's life changing when that happens.
That's right, and that's what everyone said, that it's life-changing. But unfortunately, it's a little harder to actually navigate the system to figure out how to get your debt forgiven after you've done your 10 years of public service loan forgiveness. And so that's why it's so important and incredible that Randi Weingarten and AFT, under her leadership, have been doing these student debt clinics around the country to help people navigate the different hoops and different things you have to jump through in order to get the debt forgiven. So right now we're going to transition to the student debt clinic because who would like to get some debt forgiven?
Yes.
I think that's